It had to happen. You just knew it would. After all, the disciples were just human. At one level, it just falls within the realm of things guys talk about. So at some point, their conversations with each other would inevitably come to this: who's the greatest? But Jesus wasn't amused. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Monday, February 6th, 2023. Jesus and the disciples have been traveling a lot, but now they've returned to Capernaum, to their home base. I don't know about you, but my experience is that when a journey or experience comes to an end, people sit around to talk about it. They rehash it, they analyze it. They remind each other about details some of them have forgotten. And when people are in high spirits, they start to brag a little, stretch the truth, talk about their accomplishments. Maybe that's all in the world the disciples were doing, but then Jesus comes in and they realize they've crossed an important line. Here's how Mark tells the story. Then they came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house with them, he asked them, "What were you arguing about on the way?" But they were silent, for on the way they had argued with one another about who was the greatest. He sat down, called the 12, and said to them, "Whoever wants to be first must be last of all and servant of all." Then he took a little child and put it among them, and taking it in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me, and whoever welcomes me welcomes not me, but the one who sent me." Seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it? They talk about greatness, and Jesus tells them true greatness isn't what they think it is. It's not about being the best, the most accomplished, but about being the most humble, the servant of all. If that were all there were to this conversation, this would be a very short devotional. But then the conversation takes a sudden, unexpected swerve. Maybe they wanted to change the subject, or perhaps Mark just switches to another scene entirely, but I think it makes perfect sense as it is and gives us a little different a slant on the conversation I just read. Here's the next part of the conversation. John said to him, "Teacher, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we tried to stop him because he was not following us." But Jesus said, "Do not stop him, for no one who does a deed of power in my name will be able soon afterward to speak evil of me. Whoever is not against us is for us. For truly I tell you, whoever gives you a cup of water to drink because you bear the name of Christ will by no means lose the reward." Looks to me like what's at stake here is not status, but control. It's something we see all the time. Give someone a little authority and they can become overzealous in their use of that authority, telling people, for sometimes no good reason, that they're not permitted to do something. I think it's a function of one's level of insecurity. The more insecure, the more they feel the need to exert control over others. But really, I shouldn't use the pronoun they, but we. The more insecure we are, the greater our impulse to exercise petty control over others. Many commentators see this in this passage and will focus on the obvious contrast Jesus makes between a concern for status as a measure of greatness versus greatness defined as humility, which is true on the face of it. But really, at a deeper level, this is a passage about the human condition. It exposes our insecurities that manifest themselves in the need to control others. Perhaps an illustration is in order here. We've all found ourselves frustrated by minor government officials, think DMV clerks or TSA screeners, who seem to relish making life needlessly difficult for others. Now, please don't read this as a blanket condemnation of everyone who performs these essential functions, because many, if not most of them, quietly go out of their way to make life safer and easier. Same time, we've all run into those who see that we haven't filled out a form exactly the right way and then send us back to the end of a long line. It takes all the patience and goodwill that I can muster to remember in situations like this that I'm dealing with an insecure soul, one who needs to elevate his or her sense of importance by belittling others or insisting on the exact performance of the pettiest requirements. Truth is, I take comfort from this passage because it turns out that Jesus' closest disciples were not some kind of super pious humans, but everyday schmoes with all the fears and insecurities as the rest of us. They wanted to know who the greatest was, and they wanted to know that they and they alone had the authority to cast out demons. And yet, instead of firing from their jobs as disciples for speculating about which one of them was the greatest, Jesus kept them on, not because they were extraordinary, mind you, but because they were so completely ordinary. If there's hope for them, there's hope for us too. That's comforting. Tomorrow, salty discipleship. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.